Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. So glad to be back with you here on the channel. I'm going to jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice. There are further disclaimers in the description below. So thanks for listening to that. We have, of course, this incredible day of the New Hampshire primary. And first in the nation, this video is being done a few hours before that primary concludes, but Trump is knocking it out of the park there. Obviously, the one county that they said went to Haley had to do with 6 voters. 6 people voted, and it was a tiny county, and they were all independents. Okay, they were all independents, and this is the strategies of the globalists and the rhinos to actually use Democrats and independents to defeat their own Republicans, and that's why we need to turf all of these people out, including people like Jeff Dewit, okay, out of Arizona, the head, the chairman of the GOP there in Arizona, of course, caught on tape trying to bribe Kari Lake in Arizona to not run. And so I'm going to take a break here and just say thank you so much for supporting the channel. You people make this channel happen, and I am so appreciative of you. I will plug at the end of the video so we can just jump in here with the news. We have so much going on. And of course, Dewit, I'm going to start with Kari Lake in this leaked video that came out today that basically shows that the GOP chair of Arizona, Jeff Dewit, had tried to bribe Kari Lake and she recorded it, and I think she released it today at an important time, probably first to save her life, because I'm sure she's constantly getting death threats. But she, you know, Arizona is a cartel run and bought and paid for state. And so what we got today, and Gateway Pundit put it up, a bunch of people, I'll link the video and the audio below where you can listen to it yourself, where you have Jeff Dewit, the head of the GOP chair out of Arizona, trying to bribe her, offer her a bribe from people out east, he says. These are very powerful people, he says, willing to offer her what sounded like tens of millions of dollars for her to drop out of running. Now, it's unclear, is this for the governorship back when? I think this is about the Senate. And basically, thank goodness that Kari Lake recorded it, because what ended up happening is she tells him to, you know, go pound ice. She said they could offer me $1 billion and I wouldn't accept it to not run. He says, get out of the race for 2 years. You could do other things, reach a broader audience. I mean, it was just ridiculously slimy, like mafia style. Trying to bribe Kari Lake, who had the election stolen from her for the governorship in Arizona, and then running for Senate now, and basically saying, you know, get out or else kind of thing. And so this is incredible coming out right now as we're seeing, of course, you know, what's happening in New Hampshire, the incredible primary just, you know, blowing up. Nikki Haley going to lose pitifully with the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on her. We have the event coming up next weekend, or next week, Monday and Tuesday, where there's going to be an RNC gathering there in Las Vegas, and they're going to totally try to turf out Nikki Haley, as well as put a plan together, Mike Lindell's plan, the lindellplan.com, or precinctstrategy.com, where they're trying to make sure that every county, county by county, can get their ballots to be paper, in-person, one-day voting. That's a hard slog forward. So we're going to support them all we can, and it takes your action. So please get involved. And so why I brought up Kari Lake's incredible bravery in bringing out this leak right now, and probably needing to do so to protect her own safety, as she is, of course, stumping for Trump across the country massively in Iowa, and will be again in Arizona, the primary coming up there. Excuse me. And there's going to be a huge rally, President Trump's rally in New Hampshire, in Arizona on Friday. And of course, his huge rallies that happen in New Hampshire. Suddenly I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Ooh. Okay. And so this is the deal. So she leaks this video, or somebody got a hold of it, leaked it, sounds like her, I think to protect her own life, because Arizona is a cartel-run state. And it's all coming up. It's a border state, right? And that's what's most important, because what we're seeing now coming out with with what is going on with Abbott in Texas and the bribed, bought off SCOTUS. We should have a 6-3 majority in our Supreme Court, but instead we have a 5-4 vote with Amy Coney Barrett and Roberts going over to the dark side. I'm so sorry. Don't know where that's coming from. I will keep on. Okay, and so we see this situation where our bought-off, bribed SCOTUS is literally voting for a globalist takeover of our country by not protecting our constitutional mandate to protect the border, saying that in Texas, it's okay that the federal government comes in and takes down the barbed wire, the concertina wire that they put up there in, on the border of the Rio Grande there in Texas, at Eagles Pass, and to do with that park there. And the situation is very interesting because I don't trust Abbott at all. I believe he's bought and sold, total player, a weffer for the deep state. But I believe this is being ginned up. We now hear today that in response to the Supreme Court saying that it's okay for the federal government to come in and take down their barbed wire. Is the response of Abbott is we're going to put up more concertina wire. We're going to double reinforce it. And we all know that they're trying to gin up a civil war scenario in this country, trying to do it for media purposes, trying to make it as if it's happening when it's not happening. What's happening is that people are, grossly outraged by the fact that they're it's not allowing an invasion of our border. It is an organized invasion. I'm going to talk about that in this video. This has to do with HIAS, IOM out of the UN. It has to do with massive billionaire deals for this whole organized orchestration of moving millions of people into the United States from countries that are often, totally, against the United States. Anyway, we know the story about what's going on the border, but it's organized in the billions with these NGOs, and some of them are super tied to people like Blinken and Majorkas, Israel, the UN, and I'm going to talk about that here. I'm going to talk about HIAS, the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society that's been working for close to 150 years, but recently got on the USAID State Department dole back in 1975 when they started bringing in Vietnamese migrants after the Vietnam War and this sort of thing. And I'm going to get into all of that. But what I want to say here about Arizona, what's going on in Texas with the possible, could there be an FF that goes on as a result of them setting up this situation where the razor wire's there, the National Guard's there, they're reinforcing the razor wire. We know that Civil War movie is coming out of Hollywood next month, within a few weeks from now. And what they say in that movie, in the trailer, it's called Civil War, literally. And what they say basically is that Texas and California, strangely, which is odd, are going against the federal government, and there's a civil war, right? And so I wonder if they're setting up what could be an FF diversion down there in Texas because of what this is about, because they want to make this a personal thing between the United States people rather than an actual constitutional emergency, which is the lawlessness of our Supreme Court, not upholding the Constitution with ruling that it's okay for the federal government to come in and take down a state's rights issue of protecting their own boundaries from their own borders from an invasion, and make it into patriots versus the federal government. And so I want to just put out there, watch for FFs, watch for what could happen, because it looks pretty dodgy, and it gets into massive amounts of money. So we, of course, having Majorkas being impeached. We have him refusing to give testimony, completely avoiding the congressional desire to have him have testimony, even put written testimony in. And again, bringing up Todd Callender and his legal team, where they have pointed out that Majorkas, Anthony Blinken, many others, Lloyd Austin, who just resurfaced out of the bowels of, no pun intended there, but bowels of the medical establishment to show up on a Ukraine video conference today. I'll get into that. But these people don't have oaths of office that are concrete. They all have flaws, or they don't exist. Majorkas, Blinken, and these people are intimately connected with globalist forces. And what we have with Blinken, I've talked about a gazillion times, we have his father being the massive major donor to the Open Societies Foundation for Soros. Okay, in Hungary, they called it the Blinken Foundation because it was so, his father gave so much money. His stepfather, the banker, as well, and statesman as well, being a Mossad-connected agent out of Israel. And we have to wonder, because we have Schumer, also massively for entertainment purposes only, an agent of Mossad, and we have Blinken, an agent of Mossad, in my entertainment purposes only. And so let's get into what's going on the border. So last April, we had Blinken and Majorkas go down to the Darien Gap, right? And this is where all the staging is being set for a massive pipeline using all China-made materials, whether it is building the roads, building the infrastructure of these camps, like in the which I'll get into in a second. They're using all China-made infrastructure, okay? And then they're having aid groups such as the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, huge in running all of this and getting tons of USAID, tons of taxpayer dollar monies in the hundreds of millions going to these groups with the International Organization on Migration out of the UN, now being run by Amy Pope, who used to be Biden's senior immigration advisor, okay, in the White House. And so all of this is interconnected. So let's just jump in here, because I could rattle on and on, but might as well get into the details, right, and get it done properly. So let's look at HIAS. I think I'll start with a couple things. So last April, we have Majorkas and Blinken going down to the Darien Gap. Okay, they're in Panama, which is the staging grounds for they removed the blockage there in Costa Rica, where now everybody can just come right up across Costa Rica without there being any issues. And so what has happened there with HIAS is they've been present there in the Darien Gap for this whole immigration staged billion-dollar industry to make this happen. And just literally last week, on January 16th, they announced that they're going to that they have created a new foundation, the HIAS new foundation, where they're requesting endowments. They're requesting people give their property, give their money, give their inheritances to the HIAS, and they have been in operation since 1881, okay? And they used to be about immigrating Jews from mostly Russian Jews out of Europe in the early days, and then it went into, of course, everything that happened with the world wars and all of this, and focused on helping Jews get out of pogroms and escape, mostly to the United States, and managing migration. Okay. But this is very interesting because at that same time we have all the issues around the Rothschilds' money funding so much of this Jewish migration, especially to the United States, which was then bringing Jews back to Russia to get involved in the Bolshevik Revolution. Something like 150,000 American Jews that had been patriated to the United States then were paid by the Rothschilds to go and fight for the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. That's an aside. So let's dig in here. I know it's 15 minutes and I'm a little squirrely, but it's a long story and I need to jump in. So the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, okay, it began in 1881. Since then, they've claimed that they have been able to move 4.5 million refugees or migrants, and it has been funded by USAID with our taxpayer dollars since 1975, when they started bringing Vietnamese, South Vietnamese people to the United States, and so they just set themselves up as a NGO that was doing, migration and all of this. And so it's the world's oldest refugee protection organization, okay? And they're headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland, right? And it's basically just right across the Potomac from the river, from the CIA, from Langley. It's literally like right there. And I know DC is all very, intimately small. However, it is very interesting to note that HIAS is located so close to the CIA headquarters. And what we get is that they have teamed up in the last year with something called Welcome Corps. This is out of the UN and out of the US Department of State, okay? And this is Blinken. And again, so Blinken and Majorkas go down to the Darien Gap last April. Majorkas promises that they're going to enlarge this Darien Gap migrant camp that is huge there and massive. And, Michael Yon calls it, the China camp, but it is just a huge installment where basically everybody coming out of the Darien Gap, moving through the jungles of Panama, comes there and then is basically processed and moved forward like a bus stop to go up, the next step up to the United States. And what Majorkas promised at the time with Blinken was that they would make this camp so much bigger and they would fund it and they would make it happen. So this isn't about when we talk about our border being closed or being, the possibility of, Majorkas saying, oh, our border is closed, and the blatant lies, we know that is. But the reality is that he made absolute deals to increase the size of this camp, of this HIAS processing ability. They give, with IOM, with the immigration, the International Organization on Migration out of the UN, they facilitate the movement and the basically laundering of tons of U.S. taxpayer dollars to make these migrants keep moving north to the United States out of the Darien Gap. And it's so disgusting, and I'm going to get into all of it. So the Welcome Corps is part of this, and this comes out of the U.S. Department of State under Blinken. And the Welcome Corps is basically where they are, their 1 year anniversary, where they are engaging United States citizens to become people who will sponsor the migrants, people who will house them, people who will engage and get paid through this charity, right? And so it's Blinken, and it's also the Department of Health and Human Services to allow and recruit U.S. citizens to sponsor migrants through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. This is the Welcome Corps, brought to you by Anthony Blinken, globalist stooge, possible Mossad agent for entertainment purposes only. His whole family, his stepfather, the Mossad guy, he was the last guy to hear, Maxwell Sr., Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, the triple agent out of Russia, Israel, and the UK, alive before he died on the boat named the Ghislaine. And that was Robert Maxwell. He was the publishing magnate who what people don't sometimes understand about Robert Maxwell, the publishing that he was doing had so much to do with medical journals. It had to do with scientific journals. It had to do with running them to get the narrative across that they wanted for what became later this Epstein run, bribing all the scientists. We have the mysterious deaths of all the scientists and biologists, gene specialists, all these people dead. Well, again, I'm trying to make these connections, but you understand what I'm saying. So that's Welcome Corps, all right, that's intricately connected with HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. And their CEO is Mark Hetfield, and he is he comes out of the UN Refugee Agency and worked for the U.S. Department of State under Blinken. He also came out of the U.S. Immigration and Natural Services, right? So he's literally out of Georgetown, the Jesuit-run university. Mark Hetfield, he's the CEO of HIAS, okay? And then we get Jeff Blattner, who's the chairman of the board and special assistant to the AG of Colorado. So he's a special assistant to the AG of Colorado, Jeff Blattner. And we know what's going on in Colorado. There's so much going on. I could segue into how it just recently came out that we have Denver Health injecting, for entertainment purposes only, their personnel with live Ebola virus. Okay, and they're also servicing tens of thousands of migrants to the tune of being in the hole for something like 150 million. While they're injecting this live Ebola virus into their personnel there at Denver Health. And so Jeff Blattner's in the belly of the beast there in Colorado as special assistant to the AG, and he's chairman of the board of the HIAS, the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society. Of course, it makes perfect sense, but it sounds... it gives you that cognitive dissonance. You're like, what? These people, they're all interconnected like this? Yes, they are. And that's why Blinken and Majorkas promised that they would enlarge the huge Darien Gap facility there at China Camp. And I'll get into more details about that. So what we also have then is with Jeff Blattner. He also was on the transition teams of Obama and Clinton, their presidencies. He was also chief counsel for Ted Kennedy at the DOJ back in the day, Jeff Blattner. So he gets around, right? And so what do we see with HIAS? Who else are they partnered with? And where are they? They're all over the globe, so much so that they started a new foundation this year. So when Michael Yon yesterday said that he has heard that Majorkas is on the board of HIAS, I looked into it. I couldn't see him on the current website as being on the board, but I did see that there's a new foundation created just last week where they want to make huge buco bucks, creating a new foundation, the Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation. Now we've got the HIAS Foundation, where they just want your money because now they're expanded from 10 countries into 23 countries to really, really make tons of money off of this migration invasion, globalist war against humanity. And so they're partnered up with something called R2P, Right to Protection. This is getting paid with USAID money, our money, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, UK aid, meaning, England, UK aid, the UN, and the EU aid situation. They're getting all this money going to this thing called R2P, right to protection. And this is where they're, of course, trafficking tons of Ukrainian migrants that are fleeing the war, but they're basically capitalizing on it, making tons of money on this incredible Build Back Babylon Better going on in Ukraine. So the first guy who started the HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, was J. Harvard Mencken. Mencken, first president there in 1881, and in 1904 they created an Ellis Island, a bureau right there on Ellis Island, and basically they were just helping Jews who were escaping pogroms in Russia, out of Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kiev, 100,000 plus migrants fleeing. And then they, it kept turning. Well, in 1914, right before the war, there was 140,000 Eastern European Jews escaping from the Russian area. And, we get this whole situation in this country of this block of Russian Jewish banksters and power, and so much of it is all interconnected with what's going on in Israel today, the creation of Israel, all of it. So in 1923, HIAS created what is the HIAS Bank. Okay, the HIAS Bank, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society Bank in the East Village in New York City. And this would have to do with mostly foreign money transfers back and forth between Eastern Europe and New York. And it was sold in 1968 to IDB Bank, member of FDIC. And this was the Israel Discount Trust Company. Israel Discount Trust Company. Just kind of a funny name, Discount. Just funny. And they were involved in multiple things. But I'm so sorry. I don't know where this cough is coming from. Okay. And so the IDB Bank, is an interesting situation. In Australia, a few years ago, there was this huge scandal with the Benetter family, a huge elite family there in Australia, the Benetters. $343 million in tax fraud. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm having this. I might have to stop. I got a frog. All right. So the Benetter family in Australia, they committed tax fraud using IDB Bank, the HIAS Bank. Well, this is interesting, folks. I might have to do a part 2 because I can't stop coughing. You are free, folks. I'm going to have to get back to you.